everybody, and welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson Passey from Carolina Girl Genealogy. We've got a fabulous panel and some really special guests tonight. First of all, let me introduce the panel. We've got Jenny Hawran from Like Herding Cats Genealogy. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, happy to be here.
You have no cats around you that you're hurting.
No,
Oh,
they're
you
locked
get them,
out. They're locked out.
you get them all out. Got Dr. Shelley Murphey herself, straight from Virginia. Hello. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. Ready
Family
for
history girl.
hear the discussion tonight.
Exactly. We've got Mary Kircher Roddy from MKR Genealogy. Hello, Mary.
Hello.
Glad you're here too. We have got Melissa Barker, the archive lady. Hello, Melissa.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
So glad you're here. And last but not least, she's just on the bottom of my screen. There's Laura Hedgecock from Treasure Chest of Memories. Hello, Laura.
Hi, Cheri. It's good to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. This is gonna be a really fun discussion, people. We have got Steve Little and we've got Lynn Broderick, and they are part of the Coalition for Responsible AI in Genealogy. That's a long title. And to read it makes sure I said it correctly. So, with all of the things that we do, all of our tools, all of the new technology, we need to be responsible for what we're doing and what we're using. And AI has just taken us all by storm, and we need to kind of maybe back up a little bit and make sure we're understanding how to use it ethically. And so the two of you are a part of a group that's come together to create this group that are putting together some guiding principles for using AI in genealogy. So my first question, and either one of you can answer, is how did this come to be? How did you suddenly get together and say, we got to do something about this?
Well, I can take the lead to see if that,
Yes.
Steve, if that's okay.
Yes.
What happened was at Roots Tech 2024, AI was becoming a big topic, and
yes.
Steve agreed to be on the ethics panel and was a fabulous panelist with me as well as a few others. And afterward, an individual from Family Search, Gordon Clark, came up to us and said, we need to get ahead of this. Can we create a work group to see what we can come up with guiding principles? So it was intended to be just 1 year per se and work through those and discuss the issues that we were seeing, but we have seen an ongoing need. So the group consisted of a number of genealogists. Their names are on the website. If you want me to list them, I can.
There's a whole list of them, right? Exactly.
But you just under about, you can see, and we came up with these 5 principles and understand that we were a very eclectic group, so we don't always agree on everything, but we could agree on these 5 principles. And they are guiding principles. So if you think about it, it's accuracy, disclosure, privacy, education, and compliance. Now, accuracy seemed to be the biggest issue at the time.
Oh, yes.
I have since changed my point of view, and Steve knows this, where I am emphasizing other principles because they seem to be out of proportion with what the community is doing. So it's been kind of interesting and it's exciting, and we meet somewhat weekly on some of the concerns and monthly on others. And so we hope to include the community. There have been some focus groups. We've invited people to share their insights, their concerns, and we want to address them in a appropriate way. We've been endorsed. Probably the best, the more official endorsements are the Association of Professional Genealogists and National Genealogical Society.
Yes.
So we've been working to, like I said, support the community in making wise decisions.
Can you clarify the title of your group again? I didn't catch it at the beginning.
It's the Coalition for Responsible AI in Genealogy, or CRAGN. And at the time of
CRAGN, okay.
CRAGN, at the time we did not realize something, but when I was preparing one of my presentations, I realized that CRAGN is actually a surname that means rock. It's a Scottish surname.
I was going to say that's Scottish, and I think of Craig Ladoon and whatever.
Yeah, and so when we found out it meant rock, Rock Foundation, it all made sense. So I have no problem using CRAGN, but we do want them to know that it's the Coalition for Responsible AI in Genealogy.
And so, Steve, did you have anything to add to that?
I hate Cragen. Yeah, I do not use Cregan in public, and I scold Lynn when she does. I much prefer coalition,
Yeah.
and that's because my day job. Acronyms repel people, and we want people to use these. These are important. On my tombstone, I expect a birth date and a death date, and maybe mention of this. This will probably be the most important thing I do in my life that'll be remembered. And if we use acronyms, folks will never be attracted to that. Folks hear an acronym and they go the other way. Acronyms say, this is for the insiders. I'm an outsider. I don't belong here. And so when they hear Cregan, they turn away. But if you tell them, if the question is, how do I use AI and not have it blow up in my face? How do I use this stuff responsibly? Then you can engage with folks. And inside the meetings, they all tease me about Craig and being and just hating acronyms or initialisms, and that's fine. I'll take that hit. But one of the big things, Lynn's my favorite person. She keeps me sharp. And we don't agree on, we agree on a whole lot, but when we disagree, that's when it's really, really interesting. One of my favorite professors always said, when you hit a speed bump, slow down. There's something interesting going on there. And when Lynn and I disagree about something, it's usually because there's something really, really interesting at the heart of the discussion. And usually she wins me over. But I'm hard-headed, and I make her prove her point. I don't give things up just because Lynn says I have a feeling, I have a hunch. I make her break it down and step by step and show me the evidence of what you're seeing. And for example, the order of these things, she totally nailed that. We did focus on accuracy at the beginning, and that's the only reason it's listed first. If I can share the screen, I'll put
absolutely.
let me put them on the screen real quick, and then we can actually talk about why we haven't talked about as a group. Some folks know that Lynn would prefer a different order. I don't think I've mentioned yet that I agree with her. And so this may be the next thing the group addresses. Right now, we're looking at when people restore images, and you see I'm using an old historic photograph, and AI makes it look new. About 2 months ago, that started blowing up. And so that's been taking some of our attention this summer, how to keep people from really, things are blowing up in their face. And we just try to keep people from making too many mistakes. So on the screen, do you have the principles on the screen now? Good. Yeah, so accuracy, disclosure, privacy, education, and compliance. It sounds really simple. And one of the big corporate attorneys said, oh, there's nothing here. We'll sign off on this. We'll become a sponsor because this is so simple and plain. And then they actually started to use them. And they give the appearance of being simple and plain, just like a butcher knife. Looks like a pretty simple piece of equipment, but these things are sharp. And when you put these tools to the test, they really do cleave the difference between doing good work and bad work. But like Lynn said, we've probably overemphasized some of the wrong things just because we wrote them down in the order in which we started working on them. But I'll share my screen. This will be something. I've never asked Lynn, I don't think, what order she would actually prefer. And we had I'm not going to call it contentious, but we had a meeting last week where we disagreed about some stuff. So I've spent the last 4 days with Lynn inside my head. I wrote 2 papers and I created 2 AI tools just inspired by her questions last week. Wow. And so here's the order. I don't know if Lynn would actually put them in this order. I'll see if I can make this bigger.
I can see
I
it.
don't
Can
know if
They're
everybody
my-
see
good.
it?
They're
It's
good.
Yeah, you're good. We can see it.
I don't know if that's the order Lynn would put them in, but I'm probably getting pretty close listening to her concerns. Um, but it'll be interesting to see. We may have jumped way into the deep end of the pool too fast. if I need to back up a little bit, let me know. But just to let you know, this is a fun, active group, and they're working on really important questions. And the names, you should look and see if you don't know who was involved with this. Nobody knew me from Adam 3 years ago, and hopefully they still don't and never will. But the people that I've been honored to work with over the past 3 years, they're the names of the people whose books are on my bookshelf.
Yeah.
And so it was, I've met people in the last 2 or 3 years I didn't think I'd ever get to meet. I just have a little technical expertise on some of these things. But so being able to make sure that the real experts are grounded in the reality of what these machines can and can't do today, and make sure we articulate ourselves in a way that makes sense to people outside our field, that we're using the same terminology and understanding of things that the real computer scientists do, so that we're just not out doing our own, navel gazing. But we're plugged into what the rest of the world is being swept away with.
And I was just going to make a comment that everything changes so quickly that
Yeah.
I'm sure that as you meet and you think, okay, we've come to an understanding, then suddenly AI is doing something different.
Yeah.
They've changed it up, and then you got to go back and relook at everything again. And so it's continually changing and moving. It's not just something you say, okay, here's the rules, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah, so my first question is, of those principles, which one, rather than looking, are there some that rather than looking at the genealogy community as a whole, but also look at the user holistically,
Oh,
that
yes.
they're using these tools such a way that they don't inhibit their own education, their own development of skills, and their own growth of
Absolutely.
creativity?
Yes.
And if,
Yes.
yeah, which ones apply to those then? Which of your 5 words? Are all of them?
I would
Um,
say all of them. See, the thing that's challenging, and Steve, I've had a change of thought in the last week since our
Oh my
discussion.
gosh, we're gonna
We're-
do a O. Henry thing where
We're-
she's gonna cut her hair to buy me and I'm gonna buy her a comb or something.
Well, you put
Oh,
privacy
Henry,
first, and
the
I tend to be the one, right? I tend to be the one always questioning, what about privacy for living individuals? But I have come to think about compliance being
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the reason why
Yeah.
is because not only are we using AI platforms, we are using a lot of databases such as Ancestry, MyHeritage.
Yeah.
So when I see people who are taking images that are proprietary because you have to have a subscription to them and then uploading them to AI, that is a concern. And I've seen in my own archival work where some archives where they have used certain programs that have now said, by the way, what you are placing in our, transference is going to be available to AI. And we always have to be concerned with a couple of principles when it comes to artificial intelligence. Number one, they did not have access to everything, but they did upload both public domain material and copyrighted material. And not everything that's copyrighted can be discerned and distinguished by a Google search or a search engine search. I shouldn't specifically say one company over another. And so that is one of our concerns, because there are a number of lawsuits within the United States that are being addressing this issue of copyright. And then we also have the concern of plagiarism. So with compliance, it's interesting because most people don't take the time to read the terms of service. They hear somebody they respect and trust say, I am using this program or that program, and then they go and they say, oh yeah, well, I'll kind of skim it, and just even today I had a little bit of time and I was going over one of the terms of service. And the reality is that even if you delete, they want access for their own personal use. If you want to actually delete the information you've uploaded, you need to write them personally, and there is a financial charge to that. And it's been really interesting to go into the weeds per se and say, what are we getting into when we're uploading information? And it's just been fascinating, but it's a lot of time. If you have taken the 5 DNA tests that are available to genealogists, you will know that the terms of service, I actually did study on this with 12-point font, were over 100 pages to read their terms of service and their privacy policies. I do not know how many people within the community are taking that time to read them and understand them. And so we find ourselves in this situation. In this particular terms of service that I read today, it said basically to comply with, and let me see if I can find the actual law, Article 9 of the GDPR, no one is allowed to upload, and this is very specific, racial or ethnic origin, political opinions, religious or philosophical beliefs, trade union memberships, or processing of genetic data, biometric data, for the purpose of uniquely identifying natural persons, data concerning health, data concerning a natural person's sex life or orientation, and it shall be prohibited. That's a pretty big list. And when I see certain things saying, wow, guess what? I have uploaded the medications and I have, and I have done this and I have used my, DNA and uploaded my raw data. Those are concerns for me. And that's just one company. So we have to look at all of it. So with Steve's outline, yes, we are agreement on everything, but I have pushed compliance before privacy because I believe that if we educate, so maybe education should be first, about compliance, we won't have issues with privacy. And so they're all interconnected. You can't really say, it's kind of like it's kind of like the GPS. They're not in order necessarily. They're they're elements of a whole. Mary, I saw your hand. I'm not
gonna
sure.
say,
Yeah,
and
Melissa had her hand
yeah,
up
Melissa
first, and then I'll
first
go
and then
after
Mary.
Melissa.
And I'll
Thank
go
you.
after Mary.
I come from two different sections. I've been a genealogist for 35 years, professional genealogist for over 20, and my day job is as an archivist for the past 15 years. And so, as you can imagine, the archives world is discussing this very heatedly. From a genealogist standpoint and a personal level, I have never liked the ability to change photographs, color photographs from my archives training. It just, to me, it alters history because you have to think about 100 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 150 years from now. Those changed photographs are going to be out there, and they're not going to be true. They're not right. If they get saved at all, because everything's electronic. But one of the things too in the archives world that we are discussing is donations. When people donate their records, we are now coming up with terminology within our donation documents about AI. Were any of these records generated by AI? Were any of these records altered by AI? And so it's something within the archives world that we are heavily discussing. And as an archivist, I'm very concerned because, I would hope in genealogy, although I see a lot of genealogists are really accepting this hook, line, and sinker. I actually am starting to push away from social media more because there's nothing I can see and nothing I can hear that I can believe.
That's a good point.
And it's
That's
actually
great.
filtering into genealogy. We don't know when a genealogist that is researching the same family line shares something with us. Is this true? Is this AI generated? It's really, AI, I'm not knocking AI as a whole because I think it has some great things to offer. But, I'm just wanted to say from an archivist standpoint, this is really, really something huge within our profession as well.
And I share your concerns, Melissa, just so you know. We need to remember that the archives hold treasures and as well as private collections that
Yes,
AI has no access to whatsoever.
that's
And
right.
so Anyway.
They should not have access.
The only way, you think about it, I mean, when an archivist would have to digitize the material, put it online, and then someone could get a
Right.
hold of it and then attribute AI to it. But our manuscript collections, which hold, but anybody that has listened to me knows that I'm a huge proponent of about manuscript collections because most genealogists don't know what they are. They don't know how to navigate them, or they're intimidated by them. But that's where I believe the majority of our original records are located, especially family records, things that are not in any other record source. But it is. I'm glad that you all have this and it's going in the genealogy community. Like I said, the archives world is just as much into this. I'm not. We all should not bash something like this. When DNA came out, there was all that. And so this is just something new for us to contend with, and I think it's great that we have guidelines.
Sounds
Melissa,
like a partnership, guys.
Can I ask you a question, Melissa?
Sure.
How do you feel about Family Search Full Text, which is different than generative AI, where it's allowing you to, search every name within documents? Do you like that? Do you not like that? Because that is also part of AI.
Yes.
And that's why I'm
I
curious.
do like that because, as far as I can tell, they're not altering anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, photographs, when you colorize it, when you make them move, to me, that is altering it. And when it get that alteration is done, and a person copies it or downloads it to their computer, let's say the original photograph is lost. Well, in 100 years from now, someone's going to think that's the photograph. If it's colorized or if they're moving or whatever they've altered it with. No, I don't see that as something to be concerned about because it's not, and they're not altering it.
Melissa, I have a question for you. In archive world, in 18 months ago, when Roots Tech 2024, that first time on the stage, I said exactly what you said 18 months ago, that November 2022 marked a before and after point. And that after November of 2022, nobody will know what's real.
No.
And so I'm glad that archivists are waking up to this. Because you will be the protectors of truth. Now,
absolutely.
Archivists, but you're not fascist and you're not bullies. You don't tell other people what they can do with their images.
No.
But I hope you're protecting the images, the originals, for all the rest of us, because it's nobody is gonna know. There's a slide I've been sharing for the past 6 months. It's a phrase I used on stage 2 years ago. Do y'all know what the KT boundary is from geography or geology, paleontology, the KT boundary?
No.
It's from 65 million years ago, when the asteroid or the comet hit the Gulf of Mexico and annihilated the dinosaurs. It put a plume of debris, covered the Earth. And if you dig anywhere on planet Earth deep enough, you see this thin layer that they call the KT boundary. And it marked before and after the extinction of the dinosaurs. Now, I do not think AI is going to cause the extinction of humanity. I wouldn't be working in this field the way I am if I did. But it is going to change information such that November of 2022 is going to mark a KT boundary for information. Things like photographs. If there's a photograph dated before 2022, somebody might have a chance of figuring out when that was really taken. But like Melissa said, anything that's generated now, I mean, it was cute 2 years ago when everything had 6 fingers and 3 legs.
Right, I was going to say that. Yeah, you could tell.
And you had some idiots who thought it was always going to stay that bad. Yeah. But the people you should be listening to now were the ones who 2 years ago said, this is going to get perfect.
Crazy.
And you are not going to be able to distinguish with your human eye the difference between what's AI created and what's not.
And that's
that
what we're
has come
doing.
to pass.
Yeah, that's what
Yes.
we're doing in the archives world. There's two fronts.
Yeah.
We're trying to protect what we have.
Yeah.
And then we're also trying to protect, this is going to sound very harsh, the infiltration
Yeah.
of what is out there.
Yeah.
And you're going to have archives. I'm sorry, you're going to have archives that will either allow it on purpose, or they will not be vigilant enough and it will get in, you know. But those are the two fronts that we are actually studying and looking at.
I love following that discussion because that is going to be so hard. I mean, I'm sure the kind of thing you talk about are trusted sources. I mean, if you believe something is coming from the Washington Post or the New York Times, you know, you have some authority of creation or authorship. But man, the random stuff that people are going to be bringing to an archive, I'm stunned that already I would throw up the gates, and I would say, unless you can prove that this has human origins, I wouldn't be letting anything into my archives after November of 2022.
To add to that is the fact that many of our archives physically are full. They have no more room for actual records. So not a lot, but some archives now, and it'll be more and more, are now accepting donations of digitized records from donors. Now they put on there certain criteria of what you have to meet before they would accept it. But who's to say whoever digitizes whatever they have and they hand it over, how are we going to know as archivists?
You're
right.
not.
And so it's big in the archives world, just letting you know.
Yeah.
You know,
Someone,
go ahead.
to back up, we skipped over one of the first questions. Somebody asked about the user. How's the user involved? And we kind of skipped past that a little too quick. All of these principles involve the user, but especially the education. We're talking about keeping the user educated. And so when Lynn says that could be number one, it could be number one too, because
all of these could be number one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because users are going to have to educate themselves, and we see that not happening, and that's okay. I'm not a fascist either. People are going to use this stuff, and they're going to use it with whatever level they're at, and it's not my job to go around and police the internet and tell people they're doing it wrong. What we can do though is lift up best practices. We don't have to scold people when they do it wrong, but we can say, here's a better way. Here's how I do it. Here's how Lynn does it. You know, and you can lift up. But another one is inaccuracy and verify. There's being educated on that. You have to know to even do verification, you have to be aware that genealogy has limits. Now, this is not news to you, that the genealogical proof standard is, you all probably have it tattooed on your body somewhere. But if you were to ask 20 random subscribers to Family Tree magazine, or you know, people who buy a DNA kit, what percentage of people who buy a DNA kit know what the GPS is? They sell 60 million DNA kits. I'd be shocked if 5% have ever heard of the genealogical proof standard. So people are going to do what they're going to do. So my best practices boil down to three things: know your data, know your model, know your limits. And those are how I can almost overlay any of the 5 principles, but for education, that's huge. Know your data means that you should be bringing information to a chatbot to analyze instead of relying on it for search. Now that has changed a little bit, but even if you're relying on the AI to do research, you still have to know what sort of data it's working with. Know your data, know your model. One of our biggest names today, I just was in agony today watching a post from someone you all know, just picking the wrong tool for the job. And so know your model. Not all AIs are created equal. And if you're on a free account using Billy Joe Bob's AI for $3 a month, and your results aren't as good as the one that a professional genealogist is paying $200 a month for, that makes a difference. So knowing what tool you're using, but then knowing your own limits. Know your data, know your model, know your limits. The models have limits, genealogy has limits, and we have personal limits. And we're not aware of our own personal limits. Folks don't know what they don't know. And so they're just jumping in and flailing around and we all make the same mistakes. And some of them will want to do better, and there will be people a little farther down the path to help them. But even being aware of our own limits and shortcomings, and we're all on a spectrum of too gullible to too skeptical. And knowing where we are on the gullible skeptical spectrum is essential for where we are now.
That's a good.
So
I think it's important.
So patient. I was going to say, even so patient.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
going to say.
I'd like to just kind of echo what Steve is saying, and I think, I mean, all of us here on this panel are considered experts, regardless of where we think we are. And I had an experience recently where a genealogist who was a desk volunteer at a genealogy society was very excited that someone had brought in a French document, and the desk volunteer showed them the patron how to upload this to AI to get a translation. And I said, was it right? I mean, that day I had worked with some German records and used ChatGPT to help me decipher them. And I know enough to recognize that word Tischler was not what the AI said it was Tischler, and it's no, it was Kaufman, entirely different word. And the AI had the meaning of Tischler, and it's like, no, this guy was a merchant, an entirely different thing. And so I knew enough. And the AI, the desk volunteer, I said, do you know that what it said was right? And they said, well, I'm just a desk volunteer. It's up to the patron to figure it out. And I think a desk volunteer at a genealogy society, if they are encouraging patrons to use that, they also need to tell them, this may not be right.
Yeah.
Repeat after me, this may not be right. So unless you can speak French and know that that's
Right.
what that is, don't believe anything that it says there. And I think we need, as any kind of supposed expert in the field, and whether you're just at a 1 instead of a 0, you
Yeah.
need to let people know that this may not be correct.
Well, exactly. And you've got to ask it, is this correct? Because sometimes it'll come back and say, oh, no, you're right. This is not correct. I was just trying to merely get a list of
Oh, it
reports.
challenged me
Yeah, I was
when
trying
I
to get a
said,
list
where
of-
did you get this from? And research, and it coming back and said, I'm not trying to do this, that, and other. But I want to comment, Mary, you gave a great example. I uploaded a will. And when it made the first error from house servant to sister,
Oh,
I said, okay, we got a problem here, because the average person is not, I'm going to say it, not going to care that it's incorrect. And sister and house servant in a will, totally different things, totally different things. But my concern is, number one, and I'm going to say the average person, Mary said, we're all here professional. Yes, viewed wherever we're at. But the average person doesn't know. And they're going to believe that. no matter what we say, unfortunately, they're going to believe it until somebody helps to correct them. And that's that education again. I'm trying to move education up to the top.
Up the list.
Shelley, I hear you. I
Yeah.
hear
But
you.
then the
Exactly.
other part is I use Chat GPT-5 and I use it to craft and develop curriculums and things, but I have to put everything in there that I need that,
Yes.
and I'm not one to fool with the photos that much. I did it for one presentation and I was like horrified the whole time I was doing it, even though I disclosed cutesy little AI generated thing based on the information that was on the slide. It freaked me out the whole time I was presenting it because I thought, wait a minute, there's a misspelled word, there's this, there's that. So it wasn't perfect for me, but you can adjust it now in 5. If you say correct the spelling, it will correct the spelling. But I want to make another point.
Hey, Shelley, it can't spell genealogy.
Yes, it can.
Is
You
it
can
better
tell
now?
it to correct it
Let me tell you how many arguments I've had with Chat GPT-5 about genealogy. This is great, but can you not spell genealogy correctly? Oh,
and AI apologizes that they were not trying to lead me. So then I'm cursing at it. At this point, you are misleading me. But anyway, the last thing I wanted to say, I played with this just a couple nights ago. I took a description of a soldier in a uniform and describing Revolutionary War, describing everything it would have on, color, the whole 9 yards, and asked it to create an image based on all of my prompts. And it did. And I sat back and I said, no, this is not, it was great. I loved it. But then here I am, that professional genealogist. And if I go stick that somewhere, is it mine or is it now open to the world? That, and because I told it what I wanted, but is that my possession? Is that my property? And I think that's a question a lot of I know you're shaking your head, Laura. That's a lot of questions that genealogists, they think that because they created it and told it to create this, it's theirs and nobody else can use it. So help me on that. And I really want that for the audience.
Well, can I just say something about Steve's slide? He showed the one with the wave, and that is taken from a very famous painting that I believe is copyrighted. So anyway, we need to look at that and say, whoops, maybe. I mean, it could be a parody, but we need to look at that. I know there was an individual who was trying to do some illustrations and uploaded photographs to do so. But AI, what it does is it simulates, and that's what it will tell you. It doesn't, it never restores an image, it simulates. And so the reality was she recognized it was a famous photograph under copyright, and she would not use that image. We don't know everything in the world that's copyrighted.
Right.
And so like if someone wants AI to write their book, we had a genealogist, and let me just say, none of us are an expert in AI. We have enthusiasts, we have investigators, we have people who are studying deep outside the industry as well as within our community. The best thing we can do is have these types of conversations. So thank you, Cheri, for hosting us tonight, because that's where we really truly educate people. Yes, all of us have more experience in genealogy, and that helps us when we're trying to judge the work of AI. But the reality is when it comes to AI, we're learning together. And, some people want the easy answers. And I ran across a quote I thought was really good. And it said, a beginner chases the right answers. The master chases the right questions. And that's what you're doing tonight as professionals. You're chasing the right questions. And so I just want to commend you for that.
I know Laura's got a question, but I want to just, before we move away from what Mary had to say, and as an archivist, as genealogist, and professionals, when we work with our clients, I see it all the time too. Mary brought up something very, very important when she talked about the genealogist having that transcribed and getting a wrong answer. And, most genealogists, if they could just get an answer because they've been searching,
Yeah.
and so they even get a wrong answer and they don't know it's wrong, or maybe they think it's wrong, they don't know, but it's an answer. And so they hang on to that. And then you're creating false information. And they're going to put it in their tree, or they're going to put it in their history, and it will be there until someone else finds the real answer.
Melissa, I'm currently working with someone who has foreign documents, and I actually went to the Family History Library and talked with two individuals that I know that are experts in their field, and they were going through those documents and translating them because I don't have confidence in the translation ability.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss the nuance. I don't want to
Right.
miss the significance. And it's really interesting what we learned. And so
Yeah.
the need for translators at this time
Yeah.
is essential, and to
Yes.
make everyone aware of the possibility of, these mistranslations is, I would say, essential as well as critical.
I sought out a French translator because my 8th great grandfather was born in the Jersey Isles off the coast of France in 1636, and I found his baptismal record. And so I did not put it in AI. I sought out a French translator to get it translated for me, because just like you said, not all French is the same. Not all Spanish is, not
Especially
all
not
English.
back in the 1600s.
Exactly. So yeah, I really applaud you for that.
Yeah, Melissa, you're right. My grandmother used to say that all the true French people were now in Canada.
In Canada.
But
My 8th great grandfather came to Maryland as an indentured servant in the 1600s. So yeah.
But my serious question is, one of the things, because I feel like I know what I want to use and what I don't want to use. But what I have trouble avoiding is this push of AI on me. And like just this week, my Google on my phone wants me to use AI mode.
Yeah.
I don't want to use it. And I'm curious if this is a more intense American phenomenon than in other countries, because I know other countries were slower to accept DNA testing. France still doesn't do it. There's stricter privacy laws and stricter user protections in other countries. So I just wonder where we are as American genealogists as compared to people elsewhere in the world.
Great question, Laura.
It's a great question.
Well, as I quoted, the GDPR has very specific responsibilities for using AI. They have a specific document. There are others that are a little bit more advanced, maybe a lot more advanced than we are here in America. One of the concerns some of the authors are sharing is that whereas the internet tended to bring us into a global community, AI has the opportunity and the possibility of creating division among us because of limited knowledge and the way in which it's customized to your preferences. So there's a lot of issues here. And I thought it was interesting. One author asked the question, if we are so wise, why are we so self-destructive? And I think that's a really critical question to at least consider. Why are we doing this, and how are we using this, and what do we know and what do we not know? And sometimes we don't know what we don't know, what we don't know. I mean, it goes that far. And so how can we use this to build a better community, not a divisive community? And I don't believe that anyone should be forced to use these tools. But the reality is the networks are there. The networks are there. I just recently, and this is independent of genealogy, spoke with someone who, a company, a corporation that manages digital medical records. 90% of those in America have now given their agreement to use those with AI. Now, whether it's going to be restricted just to medical professionals, that is my question. But the reality is people are moving in that direction. So what do you do? And that's where the principle of privacy comes in. and the idea that we have a responsibility to watch out for and protect one another, especially if you're putting yourself out there and you have a name and a reputation and people trust you. You can't be derelict in what you say.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can't, you can't approve of, and I have a hard time, Steve says we don't want to be the police. There are days I will not go on a Facebook group about AI because I have to bite my tongue and or at least refrain my fingers from responding. And sometimes I will respond because I'm concerned. Take DNA. It's an issue that I brought up recently in that Facebook group. How can you teach DNA? Now there is the pseudonyms and there is those types of things, and there's a few other ways in which you can maneuver data, saying, of course, if this match and this match and this match share this, and you anonymize those types of things. But the reality is, if we have these independent companies that didn't share data, so MyHeritage no longer allows uploads,
Right.
Ancestry never did, 23andMe did for a very short time allow ancestry uploads. I don't know what happened to living DNA. And then we have, of course, family tree DNA. They don't share data, which is why GEDmatch was created. So those from all those 5 independent databases had to choose, each person who tested had to choose to upload their information to GEDmatch in order to match with these other companies. Think about that. Now we have an AI, a number of platforms where literally people are uploading not only their own raw data, some people are being as irresponsible, in my opinion, of uploading their shared match lists.
Yes.
And they're not anonymizing and they're not doing anything to protect others. And so we have to think about where we were with DNA. One of the individuals in the coalition is Catherine Borges, who of course is with ISOG. And the reality is, what can we learn from what genetic genealogy went through in 2013, 2014? What can we learn to prevent those things? I call them unintended consequences. And I'll share a real brief story about, and it has to do with the Senate of the United States. And they passed a law. And that a law affected me personally. And so I called my senator. This was a number of years ago. And I called my senator and I said, why did they do this? And they go, oh, we never thought of that. That's what the senator said. Let me go back. And they had to literally rewrite the law because I caught what they had done. Not everybody, even in that body of representatives and senators, had thought of the one circumstance that would personally affect my life and affect others as well. It wasn't just me, but I was the one who said, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. And so I find that it's better, and I know this is going to sound like I have quotes, but these are the quotes that surround me in my office, okay? You don't need to worry about progressing slowly. You need to worry about climbing the wrong mountain.
Mm.
And I don't want to risk, and I've said this to Steve multiple times, I will not risk my seniors who are in their 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're going, oh, wow, this is so great. And we're just going to upload all this personal information. Or the younger generation who has grown up in the US as sharing everything they eat and everything they do and every illness they have, because all of that data is being stored somewhere. I just had the experience this week where a paragraph in one of my bios disappeared. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go and reinstate that. And I went onto my app and they pulled up something I had deleted in 2019. And I thought, why is that? There's a discrepancy here. I wonder what people in the US have been seeing, or even in the world. And, I was able to resolve it, but that particular company has given permission for AI to do basically what search engines do, which is allow them access to every information, all the information that's stored on their site. And of course, they give you credit. I found my name on there. But the bottom line is, how did they pull up something I had deleted in 2019? It wasn't earth-shaking. It's not anything I'm concerned about, except for the fact that it could be pulled up and I had deleted it. So that information is out there. Melissa, you're raising your hand.
Well, I kind of wanted, just sitting here listening to you talk, and what you're saying is very good. But I'm sitting here thinking the majority of us on this panel are speakers. I have been speaking since 2015. My main thing is researching in archives, archive records, and records preservation. But just like DNA, I went back to school at the age of 42 to become an archivist. And at that particular time was when DNA exploded onto genealogy. And so I never studied grasped DNA. So that just passed me by. But AI is on the scene, and many of these major uh, conferences, as well as the smallest historical society, are going to have speakers that are going to bombard them and want to talk about AI.
Mhm.
What can we as I mean, this is huge, but what can we as a collective genealogical community, along with what you and Steve and everyone else in your organization is doing, to advise these huge entities down to the smallest historical society to be prepared and to institute some safeguards, I guess, when they are hiring these speakers?
Interesting thought.
That's a good question, Melissa.
Great question.
It's a very good question.
Well,
I
I don't know that there's
I
an
know
answer,
that,
but
well, I can let you know that uh, people at NGS are, there's a NGS focuses on individuals and societies and corporate partners. And there's folks who focus specifically on societies and organizations, and trying to figure out how we can train the trainers has been one of the things I'm asked about the most, and one of the things that I've been trying to move through NGS. But training the trainers would be, it seems to me, a pretty obvious solution to that. But actually, making that happen, I'm still learning the levers and gears.
Yeah, but so what I have heard you talk, even from the earliest at Roots Tech, I really like the way that you encouraged us to, spend time, maybe spend money after you spent some time so that you could see the difference and really know what we're doing. And I think just that we're slowly educating themselves. I stick to a lot of the AI that has to do with writing and storytelling.
Yeah.
And I do talk to people about products that they use and what they're encountering that they don't know that they're encountering so far as their privacy.
A lot of this, we in these discussions, we really forget sometimes that this is a phenomenon that's affecting the whole world, and not just genealogy. And sometimes we sound a little foolish when we talk like it's only happening to genealogy world. And I'll give an example of where I've been shocked. Famously, an attorney got scolded, worse than scolded. The first big case, when an attorney turned in a brief, a legal paper that was AI generated. His name was Stephen Schwartz. He's famous. He's infamous now for that mistake. And he doubled down. The judge said, proof that this is real or else. And the guy went back and he had ChatGPT double check the citations. And of course, it just made up double false stuff to prove the first lies. And Stephen Schwartz was sanctioned. He was fined like $10,000. And I thought that was going to be the end of it. I thought from that point forward, no attorney would dare risk doing that. But I've been shocked that there are now dozens, if not hundreds, of attorneys who are still doing this. And what's going to happen is the people who credential attorneys, they're going to have to shoot one of these guys in the head. They're just going to say, no, you can't be an attorney anymore.
Right.
If you do this, you are out of a job. You cannot be an attorney anymore if you do this. And until they do that, the problem's going to continue. And that's the kind of, if the attorneys can't get their house in order and they have that kind of leverage, who's going to tell genealogists what they can and can't do?
It's interesting because you bring that up. And by the way, I don't condone violence. Yes, lose your license to practice. But
I'm for the violence, Steve. I'm with
But see, our own Department of Health and Human Services, if you remember, they issued that report and found that there were bogus citations, etc. So, I mean, it's happening at the highest levels within the United States, and we need to be concerned about that. The best thing we can do as far as defense, okay, so we have offense and defense. How do we want to use it? How do we not? Me in football. So, but the reality is that verify, verify, verify.
Exactly.
And helping people to understand when you have an opportunity, especially because, especially on this panel, people trust what you say, right? And you have to understand that people need to start questioning, forgive me for saying it, questioning people that they trust only because they need to verify everything. We need to be talking about archives. We need to be talking about libraries. We need to be talking about where you find information that is not uploaded and is not accessible to AI. We need to keep genealogy grounded. I will tell you one interesting, and it is out of the realm of genealogy, but it could relate to genealogy. And if anyone knows the country singer, Randy Travis, he's an award-winning country singer. And I believe it was a stroke that he had and can no longer sing. Well, he's been getting back some of his abilities, and through AI and his former recordings, he is able to release 1 or 2 new songs, one of which I really like, Horses. The bottom line is this, and when you use this technology to enhance and improve and to compensate for things that have happened, that is a good thing. When you start taking it from different, like claiming your own. If you write a book with AI is the author, you are the editor. Editors rarely get credit except on the front cover where it says edit. So, and Mary would know that now. But, I mean, and if you're mentioned at all, if you edit certain people's material, you may not be edited, but you might be thanked, maybe with a fruit basket or something. So, the bottom line is editors can be not discounted, but in the shadows. When AI writes something, AI has written that, and they have most likely taken it from copyrighted as well as public domain. So our best defense is to write our own stories. We have our family stories. We have community stories. If we write them, then they are our works. And yes, you can use things like Grammarly, and you can use, you can check on a phrase or whatever. But the bottom line is make it your own. And when you make it your own, you are the creator, you are the author, and you get to claim it. And even if someone attempts to claim it, they're not gaining the development, the neurological and other development, skill development that others have taken for granted. There is an artist, another one of my quotes, but I like it. And so she put it this way. She said, the underlying purpose, and this is kind of scary actually, the underlying purpose of AI is to allow wealth to access skill while removing the skilled the ability to access wealth.
Oh my
Now
goodness.
think about that.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
Wow.
And that's Mary Engelbrett.
That's your bottom line right there.
And so you have to realize and look at follow the money.
Yeah.
So
That's
anyway,
what
that's
I
just
did when I did that.
I always say buy, but don't be sold.
Yeah.
That's kind of my phrase when I'm talking to some people is you can buy, educate yourself, and if you think you need something, buy it, but don't be sold, because there's a lot of people trying to sell their wares and are more than happy to take your money. Anyways, I
Go ahead,
just
Melissa.
thought I'd share with that.
Thank you, Lynn. Go ahead, Melissa.
I think that my ultimate fear personally is that, and some of you are not going to like this, but I fear that AI is going to make us stop thinking.
And already
and I will tell you, and I'm going to give you this this comparison. Okay, I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking about AI. Growing up, We, of course, didn't have internet, any of that stuff. But growing up, my grandmother, thankfully, lived with us since the time I was 3 years old till just after I got married, because my grandfather had passed away. She came to live with us, my dad's mom. And my parents worked all the time, so she pretty much raised me. And during school, we had, when I would come home to do homework, in the corner of the living room, we had an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannicas. And we
Absolutely.
had a dictionary that was this tall. So I was doing homework, and anytime I would do homework, I would ask my grandmother, I'd say, Grandma, what's the answer to this question? Grandma says, her response was, look it up.
Look it up.
Look it up. And so, now I know how to look it up. Instead of, I see my grandmother in this scenario as the AI, and look it up. That's kind of where I find my biggest fear is that, because I have a nephew now that's in college, and his professors are telling them you cannot use AI. Well, I mean, I don't know how they can tell that they've used AI or not, but so they say you can't use that, which was fantastic for me. Just what you just said, Lynn, write your own stories. I agree that there are probably some helps that you can get through AI, but, use your own mind, because I'm afraid that if we don't use it, we'll lose it. That's kind of one of my mottos, but yeah.
Didn't chat.
I can offer a balanced view if you'd like.
I was going to say there's some good things. There's some good things because I know I've used it for some good things. I know Mary.
I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just
taught me
saying
a lot
that
of good things, good ways.
I'm not saying that there isn't good things.
No,
I'm just saying that it's going to. I feel like that the future of AI is just going to become so prolific that it will cause a lot of people to stop thinking.
Melissa,
They
one of my
just did
other
something on education and the chat GPT number 5. It's now something about they're making some challenging questions that when I'm going to say kids or school age kids, they did something just recently within the last 30 days or something to upgrade to 5 has something built in that makes them have to answer some questions almost to the point of look it up, type thing. And so I was happy about that. I don't have grandchildren or anything, but I have 2 kids I raised on look it up. We had the same encyclopedias in the house and, and stuff. But Steve, go ahead. You were going to share.
What were you going to say about being balanced on the other side?
Yes. Lynn and Melissa, I don't disagree with anything that they said, but you're getting less than half the truth. I don't know how much time y'all spent with real people, but there's a lot of ignorance out there already.
Yes, there is.
My chemistry professor used to say the only things that were limitless in the universe is hydrogen and ignorance. And a lot of people already overestimate how much thinking is happening out there in the world.
Oh, yeah.
There's not a lot of it already happening. There are going to be changes. But it's of the scale. My sister, I grew up working in grocery stores. My sister grew up working in restaurants. And if you were ever a waitress, you know how to do waitress math. At working at the Stock Boy growing up, I knew cashiers who could calculate numbers faster than the register, and occasional shoppers too. Some folks like using their minds, and they will use these tools to think more and deeply and more creatively. And we may need to come up with a new word, but you can use these tools for writing in a way that you are the owner. There's a simple way you can do it, and Lynn's right. If you do it the simple-minded way, you're not even an editor. You're just putting a nickel in the slot machine and reading a fortune cookie. There's nothing creative about that. But you can use these tools in a creative way that you know that what's come out of there, you're a collaborator, that you are working with these tools to make something incredible that you could not have written alone. I would not be ashamed to list myself as a co-author or a collaborator. with these tools, and you can do some really amazing stuff. Now, we may not want to call that writing. I suspect we will, because the output is going to look like printed material that people call writing. But I understand the heartburn that it causes real writers, because I consider myself a writer too, and I have a voice. And people can tell when something's written in my voice or AI. And I don't want to lose my voice or my ability to write. There's a lot of hype about these things making you dumb. And part of it, you've been sold something. Apple published a paper a month ago that said these things make you stupid. Well, Apple did that because they're getting their asses kicked. They're 2 years behind this, and they published that paper to cast aspersions on the announcements that were being made that week. It was weaponized marketing of a scientific paper that was discredited within a week. That paper that said these things make you stupid was discredited within a week. But how many of you know that? You saw the headlines that the paper, these things make you stupid, but you didn't realize you'd been sold a bill of goods by Apple marketing.
Well, and Steve, I need to say something, because number one, he has a bias and he does not like Apple. Okay, just understand he does not like Apple.
And I love Apple, and I still have the bias.
And so do I. And the reality is there are other studies being done in education, which is my other forte. And I am getting emails and references where they are showing that the use of AI is not ideal in classrooms.
It will.
So, and it does affect you neurologically.
And it will. And people, and it's exactly what happened with calculators. It's going to be similar. It's going to be more than calculators, but people do math differently since the advent of the handheld calculator. And we're all a little bit dumber in our arithmetic skills and those kind of things. But also, if you have a calculator, you're going to be able to do trig and algebra and calculus and physics that if you had to do it on paper, it's a net gain. It's a big net gain. And so there will be, and nobody should be forced to use this stuff. I can't imagine a more hellish existence than being told that you had to use these things to keep your job. That would be awful. This should be for the people who want to use it. What's going to happen, though, is people are going to be afraid they're going to lose their job. That these things do automate. And I'm not worried about these things, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator, Skynet, annihilating the human race.
Right.
But there's serious people who think that 20% unemployment in 10 years, now that doesn't sound like the end of the world. But if you had 20% unemployment in 10 years, and that's not a long time to get ready for that, that would be really disruptive. And so there are big, serious questions we need to talk about. And making AI pay for itself, all those people put out of a job, they should be compensated for that. They're going to have to tax compute. They're going to have to tax AI. And we haven't figured out how to do that yet. But that's where we're going to be going. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs and things are going to change. And making sure that this is a net good is, you mentioned a global audience. Mark, my colleague, Mark Thompson, and I with the podcast, his first answer for everything is markets. Markets will fix everything. I don't think markets will fix it if you don't have a democracy that can create a regulatory framework to create a regulated market. So, these are big issues.
Questions.
Big.
It's moving so fast.
That's
really fast. Really fast. I mean, this is when I hear y'all talk about how do we get ahead or keep up. This
so
is
far ahead already.
Like the printing press and the steam engine and the internal combustion engine. These things are going to be changing all of culture and society, and at a 10x speed. even with the printing press and the steam engine, a lot of people died. I mean, the witch hunts were blamed, the printing press was largely responsible for 500,000 women being burned at the stake.
That's right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so we could talk about this all night long. We really could, and we appreciate you being here. And I appreciate the group of you who've gotten together to help us as genealogists to really think about these things, to really understand what's going on. And there's some great stuff with AI. I've been able to do some really fun stuff with AI, but with that knowledge of saying, wait a minute, that's not even real. Don't tell me to go look at this repository when it doesn't exist. So you have to know a little bit about what you're doing before you use AI, and so there's so much we could talk about. And we've kept you for a lot longer than we usually do, but it's such an intriguing, interesting topic. And we wish you well, and we thank you for your efforts to put this coalition together. And we will have the links on this YouTube recording and on the blog post that comes out, and people can ask you more questions and talk to you about their concerns as well. And thank you for doing this, and thank you for helping us understand what's going on. And like I said, we could talk all night. We could talk about this all night, and then everything's going to change by tomorrow. That's the scary thing, right? By the time this goes out on Wednesday, y'all probably would have met again, and there'd be something else on top of the list. So
the good thing, Cheri, though, is that principles, applications will change, but principles will remain the same. So we need to keep in mind those very simple principles, and we can make wise choices.
Exactly. So thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Lynn, for being here. Thank you, this wonderful panel who's always so great and comes up with some wonderful comments and questions. I appreciate all of you. So with that, I hate to end this discussion, but we probably better so that people can have time to watch and think about the things that you've said and ask some questions, and we'll get those questions off to you if we get some for you. So thank you again for all that you're doing. And with that, we'll see you next time on GenFriends. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, everyone. Have a good